Father Fabio, I have felt that my life is marked by suffering. Everything I do, everything I live in, I note that it is strongly marked by pain. How can I get rid of all this, Father? My daughter, the first thing we need to identify that there are species and forms of suffering. Let's set an example. When you suffer a pain, you have a kidney stone, which is one of the worst pains you have. If you have a kidney stone, you have a concrete, real suffering. It is your body that suffers, and then you run after all the resources of medicine to relieve that body you are suffering. By the way, it is to feel pain. It has to be for us a reason to go to the doctor. Never take the painkiller. Sometimes we solve pain with the painkiller. That is, the body is showing you that something is wrong. And it is good that we feel the pain. Because pain is the manifestation of what is not well. By the time the pain is manifested, we have a kind of suffering. And then we suffer until the moment that pain is satiated, it is saturated. Often with medicine, often needs surgical intervention. Muscle pain, for example. A massage goes away. Suffering goes away. But from what I realize, your suffering is more than that. It is not located, it cannot be radiographed, it cannot be detected in the blood test. Oh, that often, and here comes the other kind of suffering, which is often psychological suffering, spiritual suffering. What does it feed psychological suffering? The thought. The genesis of psychological suffering is what we think. You can observe. How many times have you been suffering for what you were thinking? Thought is the source of all pain. Psychological is, and often you have the thought reaching your body because of the strength it has. If you have anxiety, you will make a speech, and you are thinking about the fear that this speech brings you. And you allow that fear to dominate you. That is, you fed the thought. I'm afraid. You are feeding fear through your thinking. You start to have a stomach pain, aren't you? You start to have leg pain. You start to have back pain because you get tense. You throw all your attention on your neck. Anyway, the thought hit your body. Often what happens to us is that you can see that most of the sufferings we have, they are the result of our thoughts. Find out if what you are feeding today in your thinking, if it rejoices you, or if it brings you concern, if it unbeaten you, and you will know if you will suffer later or not. Because what we choose to think today is so decisive about us. It is so determining that we end up turning into what we think. That's it here that commands, my people. If you wake up tomorrow believing that you are incapable, that you will not realize anything, that you are nothing in this life, you really have every chance of turning nothing in this life. Because you will be influenced by what you think from you. The thought is so serious. It is so determining about us that what we choose to think is what, of course, we will be consequently. I even think and say it many times. We are too busy what others are thinking about us. You may have spent a lot of time from your life worried about what others were thinking of you. You generated suffering because you have occupied your thinking of what others think of you, even if it's not true. You put your thinking about the gossip that the other made. You started to suffer for something that is not even true. The other gossip of you. You got busy what the other said and just thought about it. Why did he say that? But he had no right to have spoken. See? You are suffering. What is you to solve evil from the root? It's how you pull out the kidney stone. Won't I pay attention to this thought? What did she say to? Why is that what she said, isn't it? I am not what she is saying. Then you eliminate the power of that comment about you. You purify your thinking. Of course. You stop suffering for what you were making you suffer. You occupy your mind in a good thing. You will remember what you know good about you. Then you neutralize the power of that bad comment. For example, when you do what the other one is thinking of you, You usually forget what you know about you. It is not what the other thinks about you that has to be decisive. That's what you think of yourself. And then many sufferings are born of what I think about myself. If I find myself incapable, because someone one day told me that and I welcomed. If I find myself someone, if I find myself a bad person, if I find myself an ugly person, I will hardly be able to overcome this that two think of me. Because I'm feeding this thought. My people, the thought is our matrix, the rest is branch, and when we have this psychological suffering, we suffer because of what we are thinking. How many times people come to me distressed, suffering, Father, I'm so worried. The other day I attended a lady, who was too worried because her daughter was changing her religion. And she came to tell me that as if that was the greatest suffering in the world. And she really cried, my people. Father, we were always so Catholics. My daughter had no right to do that. My daughter is transforming into evangelical. And I said to her, my lady, are you right to suffer for all that you are suffering? For a reason, if your daughter was drugged, if your daughter was stuck, if your daughter had cancer, you would really have a bad thinking to feed, and unfortunately, it would be hard to take. But you are suffering for a thought that is not right. And then I started giving her a series of reasons why she wouldn't have to suffer. And at that moment, that lady was getting relieved. Being relieved. Until she arrived. It's true, Father. I had no right to suffer so much for such a simple question. See how easy it is to release a person from psychological suffering? Because you change bad thinking by good thinking. How many times have you been suffering because you were feeding inside your brain a bad thinking about others? It is equal gossip. This week, I even had a lot of fun watching Hito and Lucia in the program Smiling at This Week's Life, which he was talking about the gossip on duty. I don't know what was anonymous letter that came here, and the Hito was like this, saying with such simplicity, Hito is very simple. He speaks directly what we need to hear. I really like to hear it. And he was saying, if there's something that pisses me off in a person, it's this business. They spoke, commented. This subject is already undetermined, isn't it? I'm wrong. In language, isn't it Portuguese? They spoke, they said, undetermined subject. You can't even pay attention to it. There are people who have the gift of making bad thoughts and going to others. For God's sake, you will pack what you do. If you don't have much to say about me, it's silent, it's better. You have all the right not to like me. You have all the right not to like the other, but you don't have the right to invent his stories. You don't have the right to transform the other what you imagined of him. I always say, my people, that we who are public, we suffer for two reasons. Either people imagine that we are better than we are, or they imagine we are worse than we already are. Two ways is bad. It's bad to be imagined very good, but it is also bad to be imagined very bad. I'm not as bad as some speak, and I'm not as good either as some speak. I just want the right to be what I am, to have my limits, and to fight them. But now, the moment the other begins to gossip from you, it begins to make a bad comment on you. You have to choose whether you will want to feed this thought within your heart or not. And the psychological suffering, my daughter, may be in this respect. Suffering there begins to pay attention to thoughts that you take to bed before bed. What are you thinking about? There are people who go to bed and keep thinking, oh my God, that installment. Will I be entitled? Money to pay? Are you going to work now? Will not. So sleep, you work right tomorrow. The money will come if you sleep at the right time, if you have health to work. Now, if you bring your mind the wrong thinking, then you will hardly be healthy for later. It has the jealous. The jealous is the one who suffers from the thought he has. Is he telling myself the truth? Was he where he said it was? Anyone who chooses to be jealous chooses to live a hell, because he is doing the option of having thoughts of distrust all the time in his head. For God's sake, you will not take to your bed. Your bed has to be a sacred place. Your head has to be a sacred place. If you realize that this thought is not doing you good, send you away. Do not take thoughts with you that will destroy you. Ask God to get rid of all this. How does prayer have the power to achieve our thinking? When you begin to replace bad thoughts with good thoughts. Guys, this is the same as child education. That's why I always say, look, from a young age, educate your child to the sport. Educate your child to the arts. Send your child to learn a musical instrument. Even if he doesn't have much, develop this musical sensitivity in him. Make him discover a sport he likes. Why? Healthy mind, healthy body are. You will start occupying your child's head with good thoughts. The sport brings a lot of good thoughts. Music, literature, theater, poetry. Bring a series of good thoughts to us. And then, bad thoughts won't have space within us. You are doing that experience of suffering less as you think with more intelligence. Can you change today's bad thinking? Modify soon, so you don't sleep suffering.